Welcome to the SVG-TV News for November 26th. I am Khalil Kato with the details. The Ministry of Health, that should be the Ministry of Agriculture, has placed a temporary ban on the importation of all commercial poultry, hatching eggs, fresh, frozen, or chilled poultry products into St. Vincent and the Grenadines due to ongoing outbreaks of the highly pathogenic avian influenza in the United Kingdom. The ministry said an immediate ban has also been placed on the importation of personal live birds, feathers, and foods containing poultry products. It said that all commercial imports of cooked poultry products from the UK may continue, provided that they are accompanied with an appropriate veterinary health certificate. The ban will remain in effect until further notice. Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves is encouraging citizens to remain calm and patient in this period of uncertainty. Speaking on NBC Radio's Face-to-Face program on Wednesday, PM Gonsalves said now is the time for persons to find ways individually, collectively, or otherwise to improve their livelihood, noting that the government is working on a number of job opportunities in various sectors.
This is one, people who have access to an acre of land, you know, food. Look, coming up, Camilo told me, and I saw the document from Rainforest Seafood. They're going to need about 300 persons providing them with lobsters on a weekly basis of no less than 150 pounds of lobsters a week. Of course, the fellas in California on a daily basis who will do 250 pounds. But you need more persons. It's an era in which livelihoods can be strengthened, and as Camilo was telling me, we have to incentivize further.
The usual full strangers gallery that is a feature of the first session of a new parliament will not be allowed next week Monday. Instead, the first session of the 11th parliament and swearing-in ceremony of members of the House of Assembly will be closed to the public. A notice from the Clerk of the House of Assembly said that the new Parliament of St. Vincent and the Grenadines continues to be guided by the protocols established by the Ministry of Health, Wellness and the Environment with respect to COVID-19. However, the public will be able to follow the proceedings live on social media, radio and television, including on SVG-TV. The proceedings are scheduled to begin at 4 p.m. Poor control of diabetes during pregnancy increases the chances of birth defects and other problems, and also leads to serious complications for women. This was among the issues raised at the 6th Diabetes Symposium yesterday by Dr. Sharianne Davis Andrews, as she explained about pre-gestational and gestational diabetes.
Gestational diabetes, meaning this is diabetes that developed only because I'm pregnant. And you may actually have those who have diabetes from before who are coming into the pregnancy with it. So pre-gestational or pre-existing diabetes. About it is that there is a risk of recurrence. So if you've had it in one pregnancy, it's very likely up to 48% of persons actually have it in subsequent pregnancies. Also, persons who have gestational diabetes are at increased risk of having type 2 diabetes later on. So you may start off just be gestational diabetes, but later on you may find out that you may have type 2 diabetes and require therapy even outside of the pregnancy.
Dr. Davis Andrews highlighted some of the risk factors which diabetes can have on pregnant women, as she underscored why a planned pregnancy is always important for persons with chronic illness.
But the complications, as I mentioned, can be to the mother and to the fetus. So the mother can have an increased risk of preeclampsia, of pyelonephritis, so that is infection of the kidney and other infections, and to the baby, stillbirths or fetal death. So you may have persons who are diabetic who will have recurrent pregnancy losses. It may be a risk factor for early labor, so preterm babies, premature babies, and fetal complications, which are quite a few.
Dr. Davis Andrews also highlighted ways in which persons can reduce their risk of complications due to diabetes.
We recommend weight loss before pregnancy for those who may be overweight. And during pregnancy, a program of diet and exercise also prevents or decreases the risk of gestational diabetes. A healthy diet, as we spoke about before, stop smoking cessation, as well as ensuring that all of the lifestyle changes that we recommend are done during pregnancy.
Foot care practitioner Janice Olivier-Crease has underscored the need for people with diabetes to protect their feet and legs. She was speaking yesterday at the Diabetes Symposium at the Methodist Church Hall, which is one of several activities organized to mark Diabetes Awareness Month. Sister Crease encouraged diabetics to inspect their feet for cuts and sores, which can lead to infections and cause foot ulcers, and said mirrors can be used to detect any abnormality.
And feel these irritations and wounds, they may lead to infection, and untreated infection can lead to gangrene, which in turn can require amputation. Now, as a foot health practitioner, we look for two pulses in the foot. Remember, doctor said the foot is below the ankle. And we look for dorsalis pedis pulse. And there's a reason why we check for that pulse, because we know that this arteries and veins takes blood to the toe. So we feel to see how effective it is working, and we look for the posterior tibial pulse also. And you can use your index finger and your third finger.
She said family support is very important, especially for diabetics who are unable to move or inspect their own feet. Further, Olivier-Crease is encouraging family members to ensure that the feet of their loved ones have neither sores nor cracks that can lead to amputation.
So if you have somebody in bed who have diabetes, you have to come alongside them, inspect their feet for them. And you will look for things like cracks, so you search between the toe space or the web space of the toe. And you look for wounds, you search the sole of the foot, and you look for sole. And once you find these things, you do not stay at home and try to do your own thing. You find the nearest health center as soon as possible.
Meanwhile, an adult male who has been living with diabetes for several years shared his experience living with the condition. Stilson Woodley, who was diagnosed with diabetes more than 20 years ago, told SVG-TV News that his biggest fear is losing his feet and his sight.
Diagnosed with diabetes for more than 20 years now, but for about 22 years I've been on tablet form. I've never taken insulin. I've not gotten to the stage of insulin as yet. I use the metformin and glyburide and do some exercise now and then. I try to control with diet. I use the more diet control, and sometimes I'm not very compliant with medication, but I normally try to, because when you check the blood sugar, sometimes blood sugar is that high that you feel kind of worried at first. So I say the best thing, let me comply with the medication, and it helps. It helps. As you can see, I have over 20 years and I'm still not onto insulin.
Woodley said that his daily routine includes eating healthy meals, exercising regularly, and ensuring that he takes proper care of his feet. And while he has been living with the illness for so many years, Woodley said he has done his best to maintain a healthy body.
Concern. The foot is the most important part of your body. That takes you around. But when you get to certain ages in life, your foot becomes far from you. You can't reach your foot as you would like to, but you still have to take care of the feet, because once your feet not working, everything you exercise won't be as effective. Nothing. So you normally must take care of the foot. You go to do regular checkups with the foot practitioner, the foot doctor. cut your nails properly, especially the nails. It is important that you know how to cut your toenails, because normally they might go in to the side or you get infection under the nail bed. So we need to be very careful with those. Keep your feet as clean as possible at all times, and make sure that you don't go around barefooted to get your feet damaged, because as diabetics we suffer from what we call neuropathy at times, and you have no feeling in the feet, or little or no feeling I should say. So something could stick in your foot, or something could even be in your shoe, and you stick and you don't know anything about it. So it is better that you do special care of your feet. Prevention is better than cure.
Remarking that he has noticed that many young males have had amputations, Woodley is encouraging persons with diabetes to take charge of their health.
Exploration of diabetes really, and I don't know if it's because of people's diet or the sedentary lifestyle, but diabetes is really on the rise in St. Vincent, and you could see it by the number of amputations you see on the road. And long ago, when you had amputees, it used to be very old people, but now we're seeing like people in the early 20s and 30s with amputations, and most male, and all that is because men don't like going to the doctor, so they don't go and check. So when they do check up now, their diabetes have gone that far, or sometimes they have a sore and they don't want people to know that they have a lame foot, so they keep it under the pants, and next thing they lose the foot. Look after yourself. Take charge of your diabetes. Take charge. Make sure check yourself regularly, and do not let diabetes be in charge of you. You be in charge of your diabetes, and things are going to work out for you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
A week of activities to raise awareness on HIV Aids commenced on November 23rd with testing and educational talks in primary and secondary schools. This as the Ministry of Health, Wellness and the Environment, through the National AIDS Secretariat, intensifies its awareness programs leading up to World AIDS Day, which will be observed on December 1st. In an interview with SVG-TV News, Winfield Tanis Abbott, HIV AIDS coordinator within the National AIDS Secretariat, said that they have taken a deliberate decision to engage students this year. Tanis Abbott, who is also chair of the Caribbean Regional Network of Persons Living with HIV AIDS, said this is so youths can better understand about HIV and AIDS, to enable them to make informed decisions whenever they become sexually active, and also to guard against discriminating or stigmatizing persons living with the disease.
They are more prepared when they're going to engage in sexual activities, where they should know that they must protect themselves. And I'm not advocating for primary school children to be involved in sex, but the reality is we know that there are a lot of young persons in St. Vincent who are promiscuous and sexually active. And this allows them to talk about what they know about sex, what they're hearing people saying, and it also helps them that when they know someone who's HIV positive who might be in that school setting, that discriminating and stigmatizing that person can either lead that person to start having depression, start thinking of committing suicide.
In addition to HIV/AIDS testing, COVID-19 rapid tests are also being carried out free of cost. Tanis Abbott said so far, more than 130 persons have done the tests.
And it gives person an opportunity to want to have a COVID-19 test done. And also, sometimes we have been asking persons living with HIV to take every precautionary measures to stay COVID-19 free, because persons living with HIV can easily become infected if they don't take precautionary measures. But we just don't want persons living with HIV. We also want the general public, because you never know if you have been exposed. And we are offering you this COVID-19 test to make sure that if you are, then you can be told what are the next steps needed for you to get better.
On December 1st, World AIDS Day, tests will continue at several institutions and persons are encouraged to get tested so they can know their status.
In that mistake, they either become HIV positive or contract a sexual transmissible disease. And at Planned Parenthood, it will be at the Planned Parenthood is in Paul's Avenue across from the Kingston Magistrate Court. And these are some of the clinics that is doing HIV COVID-19 rapid tests. Spring Village, Chateaubelair and Enhams Health Centers, Stubbs Polyclinic, Family Planning, Infectious Disease Clinic, National AIDS Secretariat, and St. Vincent Planned Parenthood Association.
The theme for World AIDS Day is Global Solidarity, Resilient Services. The National Emergency Management Organization, NEMO, said it has completed the first phase of the tsunami hazard mapping as planned for this year. Director of NEMO, Michelle Forbes, said on radio this week that while the COVID-19 pandemic caused some delay, they were able to get the work done and will continue mapping in 2021 in the Grenadines.
We have been working on our tsunami hazard mapping for the communities from Kingstown to Argyle. This was our pilot phase in terms of doing the hazard mapping, and those are completed, and it really affected us in being able to do as much community outreach as we would like for those communities. So we have been focusing on having the evacuation maps for those areas, and we want to continue into 21 into different communities, in Beckway in particular, and extending it to some of the other communities. The coastal communities, more built-up communities, and earthquakes can happen at any time, as you say. We still see small earthquakes happening around the region. We never know when that big one is going to come, and we have to constantly prepare for such hazards.
Forbes noted that while this country has never experienced a tsunami, it is better to prepare, as tsunamis usually occur following an earthquake. She also reminded of the presence of the La Soufrière volcano and the need for preparation for an eventuality.
It means that it's active, it does things from time to time that we need to be mindful of that, and not just mindful, we need to keep it in the back of our minds. We are living with this risk. We pray that it doesn't happen in our lifetime, but it's going to happen at some point, whether it's our lifetime or our next lifetime in terms of its eruption phase. We are 41 years since the last eruption. We don't know when this is going to happen, so we have to constantly have our preparations in place for this particular threat that can impact us. We have to continue to pass on information for generation to generation, because we have already lost one generation who may know about the volcano in 1979. Many persons now don't, have no memory of it because they were too small, and the older ones we need to really. So we have been capturing that information over the years so that we can continue to share that knowledge, that whole knowledge management, and sharing that information about what the La Soufrière has done in the past and what it can do in the future.
Veteran Calypsonian Alexis Joseph was laid to rest today following a funeral service at the Kingstown Methodist Church. Joseph passed away last weekend. At the funeral service, his eulogy was read by longtime friend and colleague Bernard B.T. Marksman, who said Joseph lived by the philosophy and mantra, "Go where the Spirit leads you." Marksman described Joseph as a strong-willed individual who was always determined to succeed.
He was a reformist, an organizer, a composer, a sportsman, and a disciplinarian who was clinically thorough in his approach to matters and loyal to his country. These are some of the attributes which exemplifies our brother, our very good brother, Alexis Sinclair Lexi Joseph.
Joseph enrolled in the SVG Cadet Corps in 1971, and according to Marksman, his military pursuit and discipline never came into question, as he was a no-nonsense person.
During his tenure in the cadet force, he was a force to be reckoned with. Lexi propelled his way through the ranks, and by 1975 had attained the rank of Warrant Officer 2. One of his most outstanding awards that was commended to him was in Dominica at the Windward Islands Cadet Camp. when he was appointed to the most coveted position, that of Camp Regimental Sergeant Major. Outstanding was his performance that on returning home, he was promoted to the rank of lieutenant, a rank he held until his resignation a few years later.
After leaving the Cadet Corps, Joseph joined the St. Vincent JCs. Marksman in the eulogy said the organization benefited tremendously from Joseph's dedicated membership.
Alexis sat and chaired many of the commissions and committees that characterized the structure of that movement. The records reveal that he was elected chairman to the Community Development Commission. He was also chairman of the Primary School Spelling Bee competition, the Secondary Schools Public Speaking Committee, the Bingo and the Buildings Committee, among others. As a result of his outstanding performance, was elected vice president, and later in 1983, he was elected president. It was under his presidency that the JC's headquarters, which now stands as a monument and foresight, astute planning and execution, was completed and opened. His input has always been profound, sound, and sobering. I still have a great admiration for his level and respect shown for his wisdom.
Joseph's colleagues at his former workplace, the government Poultry, paid tribute to him in song. Here's a snippet of one of the songs they rendered.